my goodness.
All right, we are now officially streaming on both services. Let's do this.
Shit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every single day. And we begin, as we do each and every week, by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Reuben Bressler.
Oh, hi. I got to go first this week?
You get to go first.
Wow.
Things I do for you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Aaron Campbell.
Buongiorno.
Just going
You
through
you just let me go first this week because I was complaining about how I don't have a preview card.
Basically.
Yeah, who's the redheaded stepchild?
Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have been the whole time, so, you know. I literally don't know why I'm here.
Literally. He's just here to fill the time. That's all we're doing.
You're here to write jokes, Reuben.
I'm just a pretty face and a gopher whistle. That's all I am.
So, we get started as we do with the first pick. And the first pick at this point is what we're going to give away. So we were discussing pre-show what exactly we would like to give away, because of course, you know, I can give away a card and whatnot. We have a really cool giveaway for the week of release, which is going to be awesome. We'll tell you about that later. But for this week, we wanted to kind of branch out a little bit. We are sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. has over 5,000 games. Seriously, 5,000 games. It's ridiculous. So of those 5,000, we have chosen somewhat of an Egyptian-themed Seven Wonders Duel. If you've never played Seven Wonders, this is the two-player version of a drafting game. It's essentially just a drafting game. It's like if you all drafted a cube and then everybody looked at each other's decks and was like, you drafted the best cube deck. And then we did it again. And that's the game. It's fantastic. So Seven Wonders Duel, super clever. It was done by Antoine Boza and Bruno Cathala, two like pillars of game design. These guys are just rock stars in their field. They absolutely did an amazing job. I have this myself. I have the expansion, which is fantastic. I play this game often. This game is fantastic. We're going to give away a free copy. I will share the link in the descriptions of all the things and in the chat as soon as I'm able. But they will be available until Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern, and then we'll give away that. And if I send you an email trying to give you something, would you please answer it? God, we're going, there's 2 different people now. They just don't like free stuff. And I say in the subject line, this ain't a joke. I'm letting you guys know. All right. Anyway, we do have exclusive previews coming up. Some of us have a preview, and then others have to share, the wealth, as it were.
No, keep going. I'll just sit this segment out.
You know what? Sometimes you got to bask. All right. So our exclusive preview is coming from Amonkhet in 2 weeks. And it's weird, / that strange, we kind of know the present that's under the tree, but you can't open it yet. And we also know that based on how that present is and what that present is, that it could actually mean something for the rest of the set, but we seriously can't even talk about it.
Yeah, stop talking about it. As being one of the, we've been very fortunate to have been given a lot of spoilers, a lot of preview cards since we started the show almost 2 years ago. And I would put this as top 3. I mean, this is good. And I know we kind of have to say that about our cards, but this is good.
I don't think we said that about, or at least maybe 1 or 2 ago. I don't remember. We had one that we were like, it's our preview card. Yeah, it's fine. I forget what it was exactly, but
and we were like, "Oh, that."
Seasons past, we were not high on. We were like, it's fun. Then it just top 8 at the Pro Tour.
We were wrong,
Well, But in any case, this is a really cool preview card, and I'm very excited that we have it.
Right, and Aaron, can you tell us about a little something special just for you? Not even for us, just for you. It's all about you.
So Trick Jarrett sent me a message the other day asking if he could have my email address. And usually when Trick asks me for contact information, I just assume that I'm being sued or some kind of legal action is coming down the pipe. And he's always very confused, why do you think we're trying to sue you? I was like, because you've met me. You've heard the things that have come out of my mouth. You've heard the stories. It's very possible that I could be sued by Wizards at any point. Wow. And he's like, no, goofball. I was like, give me your email address. So I give it to him, and he says, keep your eyes peeled. Blake's going to send you something. And Blake is their community spotlight person. And so Blake emails me like 30 minutes later, and he offers me an exclusive preview card. Now, I've had preview cards as part of the show. When I was on the Deck Tease, I got to spoil Titania from the Commander set. So I mean, this is not my first time at the rodeo per se, but this is the first time that me as an individual has been given a preview card. And so mine will be coming out on April 4th. I will be revealing it on my Twitter feed. So I'll try not to tweet a lot, like in the 24 hours before and after, so y'all can see it, because I tend to tweet a lot. But I'm really excited. It's a huge opportunity. My card is adorable, not even gonna lie. And it's just a very cool moment. So yay.
That is awesome. So, you know, Wizards just kind of, they turned on some of the fire hose. And it was really interesting because one of the first things that was spoiled from Amonkhet, at least like, you know, sort of the new cards, was, you know, somebody got their packet for their, game day promos or their buy boxes or whatever, and they're shooting in, they're running up on Reddit, and oh my God, what's Wizards going to do? And like, this was kind of one of the first times it felt like Wizards had this timed very correctly. It felt like they were ready for this to show up, and then they were ready to post those cards and some stuff about them. Now, they didn't get the entire article up correctly in the first try. It took a couple hours to get all the images up there, but it felt less kind of scrambly, if you will, than other times. It felt like they knew that something like this was coming and they could do something about it. Mm-hmm. Regardless, let's take a look at what Wizards had to say, what they called so much Amonkhet news, if you will. And we're going to kind of go sort of bit by bit, because there's lots here, including new mechanics and stuff, and even a new sort of type of token that we've never seen ever that's really interesting. Basically, there's a token in packs for Amonkhet that is a punch card, like literally a perforated punch card. Now, it's on the screen right now if you're watching the video, but if you're not, it is a regular token-sized card, and it's got 3 rows that one has Embalmed, one has Exerted, one has Embalmed, and then we have 4 sort of mini tokens that are quarters of the 4 here, and you have counters. I mean quarters in, like, you know, there's 4 of the 4 squares. Yeah. The point is, there's 2 -1/-1 counters, and there's 2 brick tokens, or brick counters, if you will. And brick counters are going to build stuff in Amonkhet, which is super sweet. But I am punching out magic cards.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about this punch card thing?
I'm looking forward to my free sandwich.
After the 7th one, that's what you get.
Yeah, you get it. Once you punch out the whole thing, then you get a sandwich, or a free new pair of shoes at Foot Locker. I think it's an interesting, and I guess necessary evil to have this happen. I mean, I can't imagine the complications that this had with their usual printing company trying to get perforated tokens. You know, because it's a whole brand new step. It's not just ink going in the card.
Right.
They have to, you know, poke holes in it. You know, it's an interesting thing that they've done. I like the idea flavorfully behind the brick tokens, building pyramids and creating buildings and stuff like that. I think that adds to the fantasy theme. That's really cool. And, you know, I don't mind it. Particularly for Exerted, because that was going to be and is going to be a nightmare to keep track of a lot of the time. We'll talk about Exerted once we get to it, but
so Aaron,
you know, I think it's a cool idea.
Aaron, how you feel about sort of punching out your tokens and getting your counters and stuff?
I like this. You know, one of my personal pet peeves is I always get annoyed when people don't bring their own counters and their own tokens. And, you know, I tend to be that person when I do pre-release. I bring my own lands, I bring my full arts, I bring my dice. And, you know, if this is one last thing I have to pack, or it's just easier to understand, you know, instead of having to use a normal 6-sided and be like, no, that's a -1. Well, what about the +1? Okay, we're going to use this dice and this dice, and it just gets really hard to try to figure out what's going on. And so, you know, giving people one less thing to have to bring, and giving people a tool that isn't easily misunderstood for something else, I think is really, really great. And, you know, everything's spelled correctly. We don't have another Monarch situation.
Right.
Which is true, and
it's
that's
tough
appreciated.
to misspell a brick. It's tough to misspell that.
The one brick. Now look, I just want all of us, you know, to keep it real and pour a 40 out for all of our judge friends who are going to have to pick up infinite trash. Oh my God! It's
going to be really bad. And for those of the other Jews out there, where Passover is coming up, celebrating the Exodus from Egypt, good tie in there. The perforation in the matzah, it never goes right along the perforation of the line. So you're going to be tearing apart these tokens, and you're going to be like, man, I have a full brick, but it's only like 3/4 of a brick. I know that it looks like it's a 3/4 of a brick, but it's actually I tore the card wrong, and look, it's going to count. Look, I know that my building isn't going to be as pretty in its finished state. Or you can just bring Legos, as was suggested in the YouTube chat, which is a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Or actual bricks, which was also suggested.
Or
I don't suggest that one.
I feel the absolute right answer here is a Lego brick. Bring your tiny Lego bricks to the pre-release. It will be fantastic. I assure you. So
just add some Lego bricks to your Crown Royal dice bag, and you'll be in a good shape.
You got it. Now let's talk a little bit more about some of these mechanics that were sort of spoiled here. But the first mechanic that Wizards talked about was the Buy a Box promo, which is Archfiend of Ifnir. Ifnir. Archfiend of Ifnir. Excuse me, Ifnir. I'm from Ifnir. It's 2 black, 3 generic mana for a 5/4 flying rare demon. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, you put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control, and boy, if they have a Winding Constrictor, how good's that going to feel? Also,
boy howdy, let me tell you.
Because you're clearly going to use this ability, which is Cycling 2. It has Cycling 2. That's really interesting. You're probably never going to do that.
Well, you might. Aaron. Sometimes.
Maybe.
Every time a card comes out, the first thing Aaron does is put it through the dredge filter. Like, can I use this in dredge? This you can use in dredge.
No, Living End.
This you can also use in Living
End. I played Living End for a year, and we are a lot of
business in Living End.
This card, I'm telling you, is good enough for Living End because there are times where there are sometimes awkward moments where after you've resolved a Living End, because just resolving Living End is not necessarily game over. They might have blockers, they might have removal, they might have something. It's not, and that's one of the reasons why it's not the best combo deck. But there are times where you've resolved Living End and you either have fatties in your hand or you draw a fatty, and you're asking yourself, do I just hard cast the fatty or do I cycle it and try to find like a Demonic Dread or a Violent Outburst that can affect the board state right away? And you can just cycle if you have this out already and affect the board in instant speed, no less. Like Affinity is a terrible matchup for Living End because they can always ravage everything back. But how great is it to be like activate Inkmoth Messick, cycle?
Yeah. Or I was just gonna say, Infect, Inkmoth Nexus stays in play. Like that's a real problem. And now you just leave a mana up with this 5/4 flyer in play.
Wow.
Yeah, the
You're just
evasion
good for the
is
rest of the
very
game.
relevant. I'm not aware of any flying cyclers in Modern that are comparable to this or that we've wanted to use before this one. I'm telling you, there's room for this in Living End. And I'm thrilled. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, this card's the real deal. I think this is has the possibility to be really good outside of Standard. And I think that this is probably the regular black flyer that won't have a time to shine until the previous set cycles out that we're used to. As Mind Rack Demon currently sits in that spot. So, I think that this is a great promo and a really good card.
All right, so let's keep on moving with what those brick counters can do for Oracle's Vault. Apparently, if you participate in the game day event, you get Trueheart Duelist, and then we're talking about Glorybringer. So, wait, so is this the Buy a Box promo? This Oracle's Vault thing?
I believe they both are.
Oh.
No. So first up the Buy a Box promo, and then no, I think it's just a pre-releaser.
It's just a pre-release rare?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's totally fine. Anyway,
Yeah,
Oracle's
I think-
Vault.
yeah.
Oracle's Vault is a 4 generic mana rare artifact. For 2 generic mana tap, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card, and you put a brick counter on Oracle's Vault. For those counting at home, that's 6 mana to do anything. Tap, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost, and you may only activate that ability if there are 3 or more brick counters on Oracle's Vault. So clearly, this to me is an EDH all-star. It's not going to be hitting Standard to do 6 mana to do anything, 4 mana does nothing, blah, blah, blah. But when you're in the casual world, where you're able to proliferate and do all sorts of cool craziness, this card's going to be awesome and super exciting.
And one important point I want to mention is you don't actually have to remove the brick counters. Like once the 3 brick counters are on, everything is free, and like that's dope.
That's pretty awesome, man. For what it's worth, this is the launch promo. Thank you, Chitter Chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a weirdo card. They haven't done I'm going to sound old. They haven't done an Elkin Bottle version of a card in a while, or a temporal aperture in a while. Yeah, this is a weirdo. I mean, the get up to 3 counters and then do something looking. I mean, it's sort of like a Lux Cannon, I guess, except for it has a completely different. It has the Elkin Bottle effect. I'm speaking a completely different language right now. But yeah, it's super weird, and I like the flavor of having to build it and put it together, and it goes along well with the art of the Sphinx statue being put together there. So. It's an interesting. It is a ton of words.
Like, I remember when it got spoiled. I was on the bus to work, and I was just like, I have not had enough caffeine. This is like cuneiform.
It's a ton of words, and it's going to be on a foil with the big set symbol in the middle of it, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to read. 5 years down the line, when people forget that this card existed and was a buy a box promo or a launch day promo, people are going to be like, "What is happening? I don't understand what is going on this card." But it is the good news is that among unreadable cards in this set, this is way down the list.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So let's keep moving. We have so much to talk about this week. It's ridiculous. So if you participate in the game day event, you can get Trueheart Duelist, which shows what Embalm does. Trueheart Duelist is ultimately a bear, a white and a generic mana for a 2/2 uncommon human warrior. It can block an additional creature in combat. However, it has Embalm of a white and 2 generic mana. What does Embalm do? Well, let's talk about it. It's kind of like Creature Flashback, because what it does is you pay the Embalm cost while it's in your graveyard, you exile it, and then you get a token copy of that card. Like literally, I'm showing on the screen here a token that is named Trueheart Duelist.
A lady mummy.
A lady mummy.
She don't need no arm. Look at her.
She didn't arm, she hurt you anyway. And it has token creature zombie human warrior, so it's a zombie human warrior where the previous was a human warrior. It has the exact same ability, it can block an additional creature during combat, and it has the exact same power and toughness. So this is Embalm. I think Embalm is super duper cool. It is the closest thing we're going to have to probably Creature Flashback, and I love the tokens. I love that the tokens kind of match. And that's really cool that you can get like the card and the token with it, and that's kind of an experience that you can have to make sure keep those guys together. I think it's a great use of tokens. I think Wizards has just kind of been putting like, whatever creature tokens are in the set, well, that's the tokens that we print. Well, this has a meaning and has a purpose that can only work in Amonkhet. I think that's really cool.
Well, there's also some rules interactions, too, which are really noteworthy. So Embalm itself is an activated ability that you can activate if the creature's in the graveyard. You're not casting the card from the graveyard, so you can't counter this. Disallow will, because it counters abilities, but you can't play Dissolve. That's not going to do anything. The other interesting thing to note is that, so you pay the Embalm cost, you exile the card. The creature itself doesn't come from the graveyard, so if you're running Containment Priest, Grafdigger's Cage, it doesn't count because the token is being created after you exile the card. So that's a really neat little rules interaction and is very relevant. And I think this is just fantastic. I had a huge smile on my face the day that this came out, and I think the Mummy is fantastic. And shout out to Magali. Magali did the Trueheart Duelist, killed it as usual.
Yeah,
just
the promo one, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a super cool ability, and I love the flavor behind it. That the creature type changes to zombie human warrior. It's a little bit of an unwieldy text line, but it serves its purpose well. This is going to be an ability that breaks something. This is going to be a standard playable ability, and potentially modern playable ability, depending on the power level, the 1-drops that happen. Trueheart Duelist itself, probably not the one that's going to do it, but still a 2/2 for 2 with an ability that has a second life. So certainly a serviceable
second
draft
life
card also.
Yeah, I will accept this as reparations for banning Grave Troll. Wizards, you're forgiven. This is totally fine.
To
now
have
listen,
a whole set of embalming.
Now listen, don't cock this up and reprint something like Wheel of Sun and Moon or something, because I read the story today and you've already been talking about cycles. Don't. We got a good thing, Wizards. We finally understand each other. Don't do this. Don't.
Well,
looking at you, Wizards. We're looking at you.
I will cover all of your cards in lunch meat. Don't make me.
Wow.
Just don't.
All right. So that's kind of strange.
Non-violent.
Look, I am very excited for whatever the mythic Embalm creature is, because it has to be the Embalm.
Wow. Excellent.
Did you just? I just caught that.
Hold on. You're
Ladies and gentlemen,
this episode's going great, guys.
That's what we're doing good, guys. All right.
We're really keeping it on the tracks.
We're making it happen. Let's pat each other on the back. Keep going. All right. So Glorybringer is a 2-red, 3 generic mana, 4/4 rare dragon. This guy is sweet. He is flying, haste, and you may exert Glorybringer as it attacks. And when you do, it deals 4 damage target non-dragon creature an opponent controls. So, on the time where you have 5 mana, which is usually turn 4 with a green and red deck, you now have the ability to attack for 4 and maybe kill their planeswalker, and probably kill their best creature while you're at it. Now, Exert says this creature does not untap during your next untap phase. And it sucks because I originally thought that, like, as soon as I read it, that's immediately what I thought it was. I was like, oh, you can't untap it next turn. That's cool. You give it a really powerful ability. You got to wait a turn. Okay, fine. But Exert is not going to be evergreen. Exert is not going to be, tap and exert target creature. Or, that to me is, I think, a total miss. Like, yes, it is flavorful that when they attack, they exert themselves. They're doing something, they exert themselves. Okay, sure. But exert target land still makes sense. It makes sense because it's mechanical. It's not, and I know they want flavor, and that's cool. But again, it feels like they've been waiting to come up with a term for doesn't untap during the next untap phase, and they made it, and then they're like, no, can only go on creatures. Well, okay.
Yeah, Frostlinks exerts a creature or whatever. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, I like that.
I know, right? I was just like, come on,
guys. They can still do it later if they decide, whoops, we made a mistake on that one.
Well, look, I hope they do. And this is me advocating for that, because I want to say really clearly, guys, this is like the term that you guys have been looking for. I don't know why you want to put it in this little box and never use it ever again. That's without this being the mechanic of a creature attacking. It seems completely silly to me.
This card, by the way, Glorybringer, super good. This is our 4/4 flying haste for 5 for the set. You may recall that basically every 4/4 flying haste in red has been playable ever. Basically, we've had Stormbreath Dragon, we've had the most recent Sarkhan, and now we have Glorybringer. And Glorybringer has Tryhard, which is what I'm calling this ability. Wow. If he tries really hard, if he just focuses and has if both teams play really hard, then he can actually do something else, which I think is just fantastic.
I love that.
So if you're just like, if your opponent wraths the previous turn and you just play out your Glorybringer, sweet, you can bring it out the next turn. But if your opponent, has a 4/4, has a Dirkwood Boars in play, I'm bringing out all the old school cards now, then you can just Glorybringer and try really hard and punch your opponent in the face while also lighting up that boar into bacon.
You got so excited, you almost went Rosewater on us. You got real close.
I'm excited about Glorybringer. I think this card's super cool. This is the Thundermaw Hellkite. This is where we're at, man. Both of these, all 4 of these are really cool.
Like, this is our Stormbreath Dragon of the set, is what I would describe it as.
I mean, how often really did the 7 mana monstrous come up, or the 8 mana monstrous?
A lot.
How often? I mean, the protection from white came up a lot, but is it going to come up more often than Glorybringer being able to knock off your opponent's elephant token?
It was interesting, Stormbreath Dragon in particular, because it was sort of a clock. You know what I mean? Every turn, the Stormbreath Dragon kind of hung around. It was, okay, they're at 7 mana. Are they going to get to 8 mana? If they get to 8 mana, so-and-so needs to play a card. I mean, it was really interesting that way. At least I felt.
Yeah, I think this card's great.
Yeah.
My red mana mage is excited inside of me. It burns with a passion.
Aaron?
Yeah, I agree. I think Reuben brings up a really good point, and I also think it has a way of sort of dealing with some things already in the format. Going back to Thundermaw Hellkite, back when Lingering Souls was really popular, it had a way to sort of deal with those decks, and Ishkana is still very much a thing in Standard, and how annoying is it to have this really great 4/4 creature with flying when you have a slew of spider tokens out? That's not good. Or when you're playing a red deck and you're trying to race Mardu vehicles, is it even possible to race Mardu vehicles? I feel like this card sort of gives you a chance of creating parity by getting rid of their board states. It has a way to deal with cards that are already seeing play in Standard, and it's good by itself. And yeah, I think it's a total home run. And Kibler loves it, so he loves dragons.
Well,
That's
it's a dragon.
No, he loves dragons, and that was cool. I mean, like, when it was first spoiled, and I said, I think it, doesn't untap during the next untap phase, he replied to me immediately, and he was like, if that is it, this card is insane, or this card is, like, super good. And I was like, awesome, because I think the card is super good. It's just...
Kibler approved.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird that you're in this situation where vehicles aren't creatures on your turn, so this 4 damage doesn't necessarily kill them, and Heart of Kieran costs 2 mana, and this is costing your 5 mana, and you're not able to really kill Heart of Kieran on the... So,
sure.
Okay, whatever. The point is, if you're not battling vehicles in particular, then this is fantastic.
Look,
and we'll talk about...
Not every card can be the best card ever, all right?
Something has to be the best.
Keeps them from crewing the things, I mean, so...
Yeah, your dragon can hop in the Heart of Kieran and drive it around. I'm sure that makes sense on some level.
I'm picturing that now, and it sounds fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, the flavor behind basically every, like, I always liked the image of Thraben Inspector, this dude from 1784, driving around a futuristic helicopter, smuggler's copter.
That's pretty good.
That was my favorite visual.
We were playing
a dragon hopping in a spaceship is pretty good too.
Very nice.
We were playing Commander the other day, and my friend put Rurik Thar in a smuggler's copter, and that's a great image. Just this big old 2-headed giant just squeezing.
He's like the. Did you ever see How to Train Your Dragon with the really big friend that drove around the little tiny dragon and had a little tough time staying up in the air? That's what I see there.
Very nice. All right, so we're gonna keep moving here. Let's see. There's a game day playmat that actually has Worthy Champion on it, which I think is actually cool. Before, it felt like a big word to be on a big word of a playmat, so that's a thing. But at least the game day playmat is very flavorful, which is cool.
Okay.
We're not going to go over all these cards, but they also spoiled a bunch of cards that are going to be standard legal as long as Amonkhet is. They're going to be in the welcome decks, and welcome decks are to train and help people learn how to play the game. And there's a bunch of really interesting kind of old reprints here. Like for example, Giant Spider. I love me a Giant Spider. Fling being in standard, I think, is actually a big deal.
Yes, I agree with that.
With Wandering Fumarole and the artifact that gets +2/+2 or +1/+1 whenever a creature activates an ability, well, there's your infinite damage, which also kind of goes right in the Jeskai because it runs red and blue. So, that's a thing. Some really interesting cards and decks for you to learn how to play.
If you look at for example, Graceful Cat names the white god. Her name is Oketra. She is the one with the angel wings and the gold mask, and so that's really cool. And I think there was even a red card. I remember Carrie Vronos from Twitter. They had posted a flavor text from a red card that also named the red goddess.
Yes, I can't remember.
And I think it was like Hazrak or Has something.
It's something. It's on the red card, and this is where.
Yeah.
Come on, Chad, help us out here. I'm sure you can find it. We're gonna keep moving. We'll go back to it as soon as we know. Invocations. We got here, okay? It took us 28 minutes, but by God, we
wanted to make sure everybody got in here first.
Everybody's here.
Style.
We're talking. We're hanging out. All right. Let's bring up what we're talking about. Wizards posted the Invocations that are currently reprints. There's more, and these are the masterpieces of the set. These are the 5th rarity. These are the super shiny lottery tickets. They're going to be worth a whole lot more than everything else, yada, yada, yada. If you see them on the screen and you have no idea what those words are or those symbols things mean at the top,
you're not alone.
You are certainly not alone. In fact, you're joining literally basically everybody else, and we're going to get to whether that was intentional or not. But let's pay real close attention to the first thing that I noticed and the first thing that hit me, which was masterpieces as we have known them. 4 sets worth of masterpieces, by the way. And in those masterpieces, every single one was essentially a full art card. Yes, it had a border. Yes, it had basically some opacity was taken down for the text box, so you could see that there was stuff behind it. Had these incredible pieces of art by all of these awesome artists. It was able to really showcase something new and unique. And they were shiny, and they had like sort of minimalistic borders, so you could really showcase on how cool the art is. And I swear to God, these cards have windows for art that are smaller than a usual regular Magic card. And correct me if I'm wrong, because that's what they certainly look like. There are huge bars that are the walls of these Egyptian temples all over the thing. It's completely like super. It's one thing that if it was just if it was kind of flavorfully, sort of weathered. You know what I mean? These are, the sand has been coursing over these things, and there's no sort of chip pieces out of it.
Like tablets.
Exactly. There's nothing. There's no sort of wear and tear here. It's basically a perfectly formed, big, huge chunk of flat color on top of what should be the focus, which is the artwork. I felt like the artwork was always what made these things really cool and special. Yeah, you reprinted Aven Mind Sensor or Containment Priest or even Dark Ritual. That's great, and yet you put the artwork in this little tiny little square. Itty bitty square. And don't even get me. We're not even started about the hieroglyphic word stuff. Okay, I am fighting essentially for the artist, because here's what was happening. Okay, all of a sudden, first of all, kudos Wizards giving all of these to streamers to show off on their stream. A+. Okay, credit where it's due. All right, that was a great idea. You keep that up. All right, keep that up. However, when you make these things, this is these invocations and the way that they look. In my opinion, this is what happens if no one told a graphic designer no. If nobody said, you know what, could you just pull back a little bit? Could you not take the whole entire frame just to yourself? Maybe could we showcase some of this artwork we pay lots of money for, that these artists are dying to show off? So what happened during this entire time, the streamers are showing off the cards, people are going like, what in the world is happening in our lives right now? And then the artists themselves are saying, okay, now that it's officially spoiled, I can show you guys what my full art looks like. Titus Lunter's Wrath of God is amazing. It's amazing. He's like, I was super pressure. I was under a lot of pressure. I was really proud of this piece. And I'm like, you should be. It's amazing. And it's in this little postage stamp on this card that's supposed to be worth all this money. No, Saffron Olive is already like, these things are worth 25% less on average than the other masterpieces. And it's not just because they're not fetch lands. It's because, like, I don't even know what they're doing anymore. And I don't even want to get to the hieroglyphics. I want you to get you guys' initial impressions, because those were certainly mine. I called it style over substance. I feel like they made a misplay in moving further away from the art and more towards a border.
So the first thing I think of, or the first thing I thought of when I looked at these, was Coco Chanel. That's a reference that like 5 of you will understand, but I'm going to go forward with this anyways. Coco Chanel is a famous fashion designer. She founded the brand Chanel, and she coined a phrase, a very famous phrase that says, before a woman leaves the house, she should take off one accessory or one piece of jewelry. The reason being is that we tend to over-accessorize. We're wearing 4 bracelets and 3 scarves and 2 necklaces and a brooch, and you should always take something off before you leave the house. And I feel like that's advice that whoever designed this should have taken to heart. You've got the hieroglyphics, you've got a border, you've got bars, you've got all capital letters. If you took even one of these things away, this might be more digestible. Proxy Guy, who we know and love, spent 2 hours and came up with a beautiful alternative that still kept most of this and just trimmed a little bit of the fat. And they're beautiful. The Living Art Guy, I think his name is Josh. He does the animated GIFs for the VSL.
Living Cards MTG.
Yeah, even he put a little bit of time into it and also came up with his own version of something. You could still do this and just take away one thing. Why do we need tridents on the side? And why do we need horns on the bottom? And why do we need, okay, you want to write the title in the cuneiform? Great. Why is it surrounded by other things? If you just took one of those things away, like Coco tells you, this would have been beautiful. And that's the only thing I kept thinking of when I looked at this, was that friend who just over-accessorizes and just needs to take off the bangles, take off the necklace. You don't need all of these things.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm just looking at specifically the white ones with like in the lower left and lower right-hand corner, these nickel bolas staves. What's the plural of staff? Staves.
It is staves, yeah.
Horned sticks, like whatever. And then there's another horned thing in the middle, and then there's another white section to the left and to the right of each. It's like, I don't know what's happening in these cards. And then, like, I love the art for all of these.
Just beautiful.
I think that some of them are just, like, Days in particular, the art to me is like, yeah, I would be dazed by that.
Entomb.
The Entomb also, just perfect. But you look at Days, Stifle, Entomb, specifically the ones that have short names, and you try to read their names, and it's like a reading test. I can't, like,
even the card type.
this was my first time seeing the worship, which, by the way, I love the arts of the worship. But I was just like, what in this? I see two Heart of Kirans in the text line is what the worship has. Like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, I get that they're trying to do this thing, but it's super confusing, super busy. Me personally, I like the cards. I know what the cards do, right? I'm just going to pull old cards out of my ass and talk about them on stream, #Elkin right? So I'm going to know what the worship does. I'm going to know what Daze does. Anyone who's new is going to see this and be like, oh, those are pretty. Is that a Yu-Gi-Oh card? Is that a promo Pokemon card? What game is that from? Like, these are, the Future Sight borders are one thing. The Future Sight borders... didn't look. People freaked out when the Future Sight borders came out and were like, "Oh, is that the future of Magic? I can't believe that. That's ridiculous. What's going on?" This is a whole nother level of that. Yeah. That is weird, not worrisome. Like, I'm glad that they attempt. Like, they're valiant in the effort, right? Like, I'm glad they took a big chance, and this was a big chance. But sometimes when you take a risk, it doesn't pan out. And I'm not sure these panned out because these are super strange.
All right, so...
A friend of mine... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, a friend of mine made a joke about Tarmogoyf because when Dark Ritual came out, we couldn't read instant. Like, it looked like Urstard. And my friend was like, does this count as a card type for Tarmogoyf? You got instants and Urstards.
Well, and we also have bays, by the way, that you can see bays. All right, so, I mean, it already has sort of jokes. I'm putting one on the screen here, like, they're using it for CAPTCHA because that's what you do.
Dear.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I couldn't log into my Facebook.
Never, ever.
Oh,
I would be unable to do it.
All right, so what you have here is you have all these hieroglyphics. You have not the Bellerin font. You have this weird little hieroglyphic font thing. The word itself is kind of bolded in a way. And here's what they said about it. So Aaron Forsythe came to Twitter, and I'll bring it up right here, and someone asked him, are the unreadable titles a feature or a bug? Serious question. Aaron replies, goal was that it didn't look like English on first read. It appeared that we succeeded. Yeah, man. Holy cow. Way to go, guys. If that was your target, you obliterated it. Like, you just, like... with a shotgun. You just
like fixing a toaster with a sledgehammer.
It's weird that your goal was to not read it. I can't understand. It's one thing, like, if so English, but it's not, like, again, this is like there were no symbols next to the word.
Yeah.
But when it's all symbols and there's some slightly different thing and your D looks like a B and it just sort of looks like a mess in that type line, are you kidding me? Oh.
So these, I'm hoping, please, dear gods, I'm hoping these only appear in English. Can you imagine?
All the masterpieces are in English, and that's fine.
Except for these. These don't appear in English. These appear in Sanskrit. These appear in whatever language this is. But yes, most of the masterpieces appear in English, and at least the text boxes are reasonable, all caps.
I found out a lot of the words, or a lot of what the cards were based on the actual words in the card's text.
Right.
Which is great.
Which is cool. But yeah, this is weird. And the other thing about these that are weird is, what's the theme? Like, the previous ones had themes, right? Like, the previous ones were like, oh, these are all artifacts that are at the Inventors Fair, and these are all lands that you might visit when you come to Zendikar. What's the thread that ties austere command together with counterbalance and stifle and attrition and aggravated assault?
Aggravated assault.
Yeah, when you scroll down this list and you see Mind Twist next to aggravated assault, you got to think something went wrong, right? I don't understand what the theme is here. There are creatures, there are non-creatures, there are permanents, there are non-permanents. There's everything from all of the spectrum. There are old cards, there are new cards. I don't know what's happening.
Well, there's a couple of things. I think, Entomb very much flavor-wise is, burying somebody in sand, which I think is really clever. Attrition, they kind of talk about from the story today, one of the things that they learn, spoiler alert, is that anything that dies on Amonkhet comes back as undead. So essentially you're playing a grindy, almost attrition game with somebody. Dark Ritual, again, that seems to make sense here. Containment Priest, again, Realm of the Dead. There's some things that do. Yes. Sphinx, obviously. Worship, I think, makes sense here. Loyal Retainers make sense here. There's some things that do, but then the ones that don't really don't. Like, there's a huge gulf there of, girl.
Divert. Divert is a weird one. I think that Aven Mind Sensor is medium at best.
I think ultimately, that, for me, the theme is disruption. That's the one that somebody said, the theme is disruption. Okay. At least that makes a lot of sense based on a lot of these cards. And some of them
Other than Aggravated Assault, I agree with you.
And some of them I think are just straight, sort of the Egyptian flavor of worshiping the gods, and the dark rituals and all that stuff. And that's fine. But I think the real tragedy here is that we're probably due for another one of these. We're going to get more of this in the future, and more than that, the one that really kills me is we should be talking about Force of Will right now. Force of Will is one of these invocations.
Is in this set. Force of Will is in this set.
Yes, Force of Will is in Amonkhet, and we're over here complaining now for going on almost 15 minutes of what in the world they did with these things.
I can't wait I can't wait to hear the casual player or the person who maybe doesn't play any Legacy or Vintage open this up and be like, why would I want to exile a card? Why would I want to lose a life? This is terrible. And the rest of us are like, that's Force of Will. That's one of the most powerful spells in the game. And just to see that newer, maybe a standard player who's like, this is terrible. I can just use negate or dispel and just be like, oh girl.
I mean, look, it's just like you wanted to be the guy or the girl who was getting the Soul Ring, masterpiece. You want to be the person getting the Mind Twist in Sealed. And just destroy it.
People were laughing. Honestly, we made a lot of fun of who wants to open an Ornithopter, right? Am I right? Up top, $55.
Yeah,
nice try, right?
It's true.
It's super weird. I mean, I don't know. I just think that we should have been talking about how Force of Will is in this set. That's the shame here.
That's what we should have led off with, and then into how they look and how they feel, and oh my god, I can't believe Force of Will is here, because that's your money card. That's your big diamond right here, the one that you want to get. It's your mana vault or whatever or mana crypt of the set. Anyway, those are invocations. There's going to be more of them that are coming that are actually from the set Amonkhet itself, just like they did the Gear Hulks as masterpieces. They're doing some cards from the set, and we'll see what those end up being. And
also, there are 4 cards of rare or mythic, with the word invocation in the title, and none of them are invocations. Yeah. Which bothers me a little bit on just a deep personal level.
Wow. Just deep inside.
But whatever,
Fantastic.
It is what it is.
We're going to move on to Gathering the Townsfolk, and the MTG Art Show Kickstarter is officially a thing, and it's really a cool combination of Josh Krause, who does the original art token stuff, and here we have sort of the curator, if you will, of Mike Linnemann from GatheringMagic.com.
Yeah, man.
Who
Vorthos Mike.
Yeah, Vorthos Mike, who does Vorthos Mike on Twitter. He does an amazing job covering artwork and Magic and talking to artists and all that good stuff.
Also, #MTG Dogs.
#Linnemann. He's quite a mensch.
Sorry, master of the we should sell what he's selling. Sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt. He does great things.
He does a lot of great things. He's just everything.
He's a very excited dude. I'm excited to see him at Vegas. That's going to be great. As of right now, it is halfway home. $7,520 of the $15,000 goal. The Magic Art Show is an art exhibition they're going to run at Las Vegas in 2017, in just a few months. They want to do an art show, and they don't want to just do let's put some stuff on easels, or let's get some some boards and sort of tape things, or or pin things. No, they want to like get some walls, get some lighting, like get some frames, make it nice, have an actual layout that people can look through.
Classy art show.
A classy art show, super sweet. They got an entirely brand new piece of artwork by Zach Stella that you can get in playmat form, or you can buy the actual piece if you want to go all the way and get the highest sponsorship tier. They have exclusive tokens and whatnot, and you can get early access to the art show, which is
rewards.
Cool. Super sweet, and I'm just, I'm really excited to see this kind of happen, because, and here was actually the most exciting part, and he dropped this on me, and I don't know if he's ready for this. I'm going to back together, but I'm ready for this, and my body is ready. And the ready part is he mentioned that this might not be the only place this thing stops at. This, they want to buy all of this equipment, all of this hardware. They don't want to just throw it away at the end of GP Vegas. Right. They want to go and maybe take this in different places and take this maybe even around the world. Who knows? But the idea of celebrating the Magic artwork that we get sort of set in and set out, the things that have really defined our experience with Magic, is a lot of what these artworks give us. And one of the cool things he mentioned when he was kind of talking to me about it, he said, hey, if you want to talk about it on the show, how about you guys pick a guild, a Ravnica guild, and we will give you an image of some original artwork we have from that guild, which I thought was really sweet. So, Aaron, you clearly chose not the one about the graveyards and the death.
Of course.
Right. You're obviously Boros. Yob. So let's get to your Boros preview. No, wait. Aaron, tell us what you chose and what card they gave us. And I'll put it on screen.
So I chose the Golgari, obviously, the best guild ever. And I was given Overgrown Tomb, the original.
Yeah.
Rob Alexander.
So on screen we have an amazing, this is the original painting from Rob itself. Beautiful framing, absolutely terrific. Super cool from the Golgari, clan or the Golgari. What do they call them? The Golgari
Guild? The Golgari Swarm.
Swarm, thank you. Each guild has a special sort of name to it, which is cool.
Right.
Reuben, what did you choose?
I basically said I will take any guild that has red in it, is what I said. Seeing as I am the mono red representative on this here podcast, and they were like, well, we got a mono red card for you. And they gave me Guttersnipe, which is a nice one. I'm a big fan of the Guttersnipe. I've had many a train wreck Legacy and Vintage Storm Draft go awry and have to use Guttersnipe as my win condition when I didn't see a Storm card. I'm a big fan of Guttersnipe, and the art is like very Ravnica-y and super cool, and I'd like to see it.
Absolutely,
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it up close. It's it's a different style. All the Ravnica stuff is different than the typical adventure world that we're used to. So I really like the original art for this one.
Yeah, Guttersnipe from Return to Ravnica was in a Commander set, and apparently Conspiracy Take the Crown. It was also hanging out there too.
There you go.
Which is neat. I chose, as a younger man, I was a little gruely, a little gruelish, a little Captain Tickles. As you get older in life and things get you start to have some perspective, you want to have more of the control aspect. So Azorius,
as you become an old man, all you want is for some peace and quiet.
That's right. And if I could just render this person silent, that would be great. We have Render Silent from Kev Walker, which is really cool. It's a promo version of Render Silent, and the artwork's on the screen now. Awesome. Render Silent, of course, counters target spell. Its controller can't cast any more spells this turn. This makes you stop. This makes you be quiet. I may or may not have very small versions of me that I have to say that all the time. And this kind of, this can represent that. Okay, it can represent that.
So we're going to link to this Kickstarter, right?
Yes, we're going to there's a link to the Kickstarter in the podcast description, in the video description. You guys can check it out. Google MTG Art Show Kickstarter. You'll find it in 2 seconds.
Yes. As we're recording this, they're a little over halfway to their goal. So we certainly support this this initiative.
I just want to add one thing about mine, and I'd forgotten to comment on it. But one thing I really love about Rob's version of Overgrown Tomb is I love the fact that it almost looks holy. The reprinted version in Return to Ravnica is just dark. It's just dark and dirty. There's no trace of any goodness here. But you're looking at the Rob's version, and there's the moss and there's the dinginess there, and there's obviously some decay happening. But you see almost this holy light coming through, and I love that juxtaposition of gross and still kind of beautiful beautiful. And I think that kind of sums up, for me at least, you know, the Golgari Swarm. And then you have like the chandelier, which is very Golgari looking. And this is just beautiful.
Absolutely. So we're going to keep moving here, and our next piece we wanted to talk a little bit about what Cascade Games is doing, because Cascade is no longer going to be with Channel Fireball running Grand Prix. In fact, no one is going to be running Grand Prix but Channel Fireball at this point. But they are partnering with DreamHack Austin for a $10,000 event. Reuben, will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. So Cascade, I mean, everybody knows about Cascade at this point, right? You've been to a ton of GPs from them. They're running GP San Antonio this weekend, for example.
Nice.
So those of you that are going to San Antonio, you'll be able to participate in one of the last GPs that Cascade's run by. They're based out of Arizona, I believe.
I think it's Portland.
I thought they were up in the Northwest. Correct.
Yeah, I think they're like West Coast.
That makes more sense, seeing as the word Cascade references the Cascade Mountains. Well, in any case, they're going to be... So, they're going to be partnering with DreamHack. DreamHack is a company that runs enormous esports tournaments all over the world. And one of their big stops is in America, and it's in Austin every year. And they have, Hearthstone events, they have StarCraft events. I think they have one of the biggest Smash Brothers events in the world there as well as PvP fighters and first-person shooters, and they have all these huge tournaments with big prize pools all over the events, which is a 3 or 4 day basically convention. And this year, DreamHack is partnering with Cascade Games for a $10,000 Magic the Gathering event. $10,000 prize pool. This event is happening in like a month, right? Mm-hmm. This is the end of April, and they are kind of just announcing it, which is a little weird to me, which is why I wanted to make sure that we got it out there as soon as possible, because this is a big deal. There are qualifier events on Friday and Saturday of DreamHack for the Sunday final. And you can read through all of the qualification stuff on their website. But this, I think, main reason why I wanted to bring this up is because this is going to be the future of non-Channel Fireball tournament organizers. I think is pairing up with already enormous gaming conventions. DreamHack is a perfect example. Their official sponsor is Monster Energy Drink. How many times on this show have we casually mentioned that a Magic team or a Magic stream should be sponsored by Monster? Well, here you go. We actually have it.
It's true.
In actuality. In the future, if for example, Pastimes, which is located in the middle of the country, re-partnered up with Gen Con, or if SCG, one of the biggest tournament organizers, if not the biggest tournament organizer, partnered up with PAX East to run a big tournament, or Haruruya partnered up with one of the Japanese gaming conventions or anime conventions. The possibilities of partnerships here are endless, and I think that this is really going to be the future for tournament organizers going forward.
It certainly seems like a decent option, because when you try to run tournaments, it usually there's things like, how much do you get the space? There's like, where is space available? When is it available? Do you have enough time to sort of promote it? Do you have the promotional materials in order to get people excited about it? Do you have the advertising so people know it exists, so on and so forth? So being able to kind of sort of hitch your wagon onto a very large event, a very large esports event, which can have a spillover, which is nice. Moving through it, it does one of those things that I really, really hate, which is a tournament qualifies for a tournament, which qualifies for a tournament, but it's fine.
There's only two steps. There's only the two steps.
So that's fine.
You got to qualify for the Sunday tournament. There's only 64 spots in the Sunday tournament, which are going to be 8-person drafts and then an 8-person draft. And then first prize, it's basically, if you remember, draft opens from the old SCG tour.
Oh, yeah.
Before it was the SCG tour.
Wow.
This is a $10,000 draft open.
Yeah, for lack of a better term. Absolutely.
This is $5K to first place. If you 3-0-3-0 2 drafts, then you've made $5K. This is like, and there's also a ton of side events and stuff. There's a Legacy and Modern and Two-Headed Giant and all that kind of stuff, side events too.
Right.
So I just think that this it's a pretty cool, unique event.
All right, so let's keep moving here because we have all the topics today. Wizards announced that they were going to move their announcement day. there was supposed to be 2 days from now, all the announcements about everything that was going to happen in the first half of next year. Oh my God, there's going to be a 25th anniversary, Magic Online's 15th anniversary. Holy cow. And they basically were just like, we're going to do it in June. And not just like June. They're, quote, aiming for June, which basically means July. It's okay, Wizards. We still love you. But, you know, at least to me, this says they're not going to screw up the anniversary. Magic's 20th anniversary basically just went like, boop, and that was it. And that was all. Their 15th anniversary, they made a special foil char, but for the 20th one, nothing. Crickets. Well, for God's sake, they punted that thing so hard it was sleeved in pigskin, and now they're coming back, and they're doing it right.
Is a really good saying.
They're doing it right. I got that from Jeff Cunningham, and
well done.
So you know, please do a special thing for the 20th anniversary. Please make masterpiece versions that are alpha, essentially alpha cards. You know, alpha shapes, alpha type layouts, alpha graphic design. People want that stuff. People love that stuff. It's been a long time since they've gone anywhere near sorts of a retro throwback type stuff. Please do that. I hope they do all the cool things. I want to get stores involved. I know they want to get stores involved. I want in-store events that are going to be great. I want Magic Online stuff that's going to be cool, that isn't going to cost us $1 million. You know, make it awesome, because Magic deserves it. And to see their 20th anniversary just come and go like it's just a regular day was really frustrating.
Yeah. I would not be surprised to see it coincide with Gen Con weekend, seeing as Magic was originally released at Gen Con weekend. Even though Magic doesn't necessarily have a connection to Gen Con itself anymore, I would anticipate that right about that time would be where I would expect this announcement to be taking place.
Well, note that they are going to be exhibiting at E3.
Okay.
And we're not exactly sure what the digital next part of all this is going to be, but that is
right. That too.
But doing that, they're also going to be doing that at the weekend of GP Vegas. The weekend of GP Vegas, 3 GPs, is E3. So I'm not saying that at the same time as Gen Con. What I'm saying is the same time as GP Vegas is E3. Wow, wouldn't it be amazing if they could do something that would talk all about, you know, the 25th anniversary? Which kind of sounds, now that I'm saying it all out loud, sounds exactly like what they're going to be doing.
Sounds like what they're doing. I think that we've connected the dots on our conspiracy board.
Right. I think we got
I hope that we get to be live streaming our podcast at the GP when they make the announcement, so that we can just react to it.
Oh my goodness.
That also is going to happen.
I need to set up a Periscope or something.
We can dream.
We can figure it out.
We want to do a live show so badly, and we just have to figure out the logistics of it. And if anybody's watching and you think you can help with that, like whether it be venue, microphones, or anything, we want to do this so damn bad, and just
it's really logistics. It's just, you know, how do we get cameras, how do we get microphones, how do we get streams, where do we go? I mean, you know, stuff like that.
Little bit of podcast nerdiness here that I didn't talk about previously, but I'm thinking about investing in a blue raspberry, the little new travel mic. Have you guys taken a look at those?
No. Sounds really cool.
Because we all have Yeti, we all have the blue Yetis. We have these big honking things. These are not great for travel, though.
But they honk, though. They certainly honk.
And yeah, they are quite heavy. But the raspberry is about this big. It's a little pocket mic.
Itty bitty.
Apparently has really good quality to it. So I'm thinking about investing in one of those.
Nice. So
sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a whole tangent.
Hey man,
there, but...
you buy microphones, we want to hear about it.
Hashtag ad.
Yeah, man. How much they pay you on that one? So let's move on here. So there's a Blogatog entry, and this is where Mark Rosewater answers, you know, all the questions all the time. I have no idea how he finds all this time, but regardless, someone said, have we already seen the reason for the lack of graveyard interactions in Standard, Amonkhet having graveyard mechanics like Embalm, or shall we still wait? So he says Amonkhet has a strong graveyard component. We always try to be careful not to undercut an upcoming block's themes. It's why Shadows over Innistrad block didn't strongly hose artifacts, as it was followed by Kaladesh. Yeah, you know what we could have used before Kaladesh? Some graveyard hate already with your freaking Imracles?
I don't understand. I don't understand how Wizards doesn't see these coming. I don't get it. They have so many smart people, and not just smart people, but experienced. Now at this point, they hire Grand Prix top 8 competitors from big Magic teams who know how to play test and know how to develop decks and know what they need against certain archetypes. And they still don't see problem cards coming and then wait 2 sets to be like, oops, we didn't realize this one. Got to throw in our stopgap solution to whatever the problem card was 3, 6, 9 months later. And it's too late at that point.
I mean, then we have a Kataki Wars Wade situation,
right?
Which was,
exactly.
Man, if that card had showed up in Champions of Kamigawa instead of Sabers of Kamigawa, maybe Mirrodin wouldn't have been a complete, total train wreck. Maybe it would have just been like a really horrible train wreck, not a total one. You know, like maybe some people would have survived. Maybe it would have been like Unbreakable. Maybe one guy would have gotten out. But no. Yeah. Instead, we had crap. We had nothing. And he's like, you know, and we were going to talk about this a little bit with Sam Starter's article, but again, the idea that there's no graveyard hate, and yeah, Amonkhet is a graveyard set, but so was Shadows over Innistrad. We didn't have anything for that. In Kaladesh, we had nothing.
Well, I think there's also the issue of, you know, the way he words it, where he says strongly hose artifacts. You know, to be clear, people are not asking for another Leyline of the Void. They're not asking for Rest in Peace. They're not. These are people that would be happy with Cranial Archive. These are people that would be happy with, you know, a Relic even, or hell, even a Nile Spellbomb. Like, I feel like when people request these things, Wizards assumes that we're asking for, you know, a complete hoser, and we're really not. And if you look back at other standards, or hell, even if you look at other formats, you know, these decks can thrive. Affinity can survive an Ancient Grudge. Dredge can survive a Nile Spellbomb. You know, if a deck is built correctly and if the mechanic is good enough, it can be annoying. Like it can stop the deck in its tracks if depending on what the deck is already doing. Like if Affinity is already on the back foot, okay, yeah, a Shatterstorm can be crippling. But you know, I feel like there's just a misunderstanding of what they think we want from hate cards and what hate cards can actually do to a dedicated deck. And I don't understand why, you know, I never thought I'd be advocating for graveyard hate, but, you know, I'm even kind of surprised that it's gone on for this long of like nothing. Like, come on. Like,
not even like poor answers. And again, it's okay that those answers aren't that great, but even Sam talks about like, you know, if they had put Naturalize to give just a little bit of higher quality artifact removal than what is currently available, that's we're not looking again for some overpowered craziness.
Yeah.
All I want, Wizards, is you ready for a new old school Magic card reference?
Here we go.
All I want is Awful Snout.
What are you saying? Are you just making up card names?
Awful Snout. Go look up the art for that one and try not to giggle.
You want to spell this?
Offalsnout. It's from Morningtide.
I'm going to make that my new drag name,
just
so you
God.
know.
Yeah,
my new drag name is going to be Awful Snout.
We're not asking for the world. We're not asking for the best ever. You know.
Oh my God, that card is hideous.
Yeah, that card's horrifically bad. But you've referenced in the past, Aaron, Withered Wretch. Like that would be the kind of card we're looking for, and it fits flavorfully within Amonkhet. And it was Scavenging Ooze before Scavenging Ooze, and it's great. So you know that's the kind of hate card we're looking for. You know, we harped for a while on Pithing Needle. I'll take a 2-mana Pithing Needle that only affects Planeswalkers. Right? Like
Pithing Needle almost like, and again, I'm touching on things I want to talk about later with Sam Starter's article because he talks about Standard and the things they're trying to do. I understand that you can't necessarily put Pithing Needle in every set and make it work thematically, make it work mechanically, make it make.
You can put Negate in every set. Like what?
Clearly,
yeah. Well, some cards should be in every set. I think that Banishing Light, Oblivion Ring should be in every set. I think Negate should be in every set. I think Pithing Needle should be in every block, and there should be at least some medium, you know, not quite Tormod's Crypt level, but something similar to Tormod's Crypt and something similar to Pithing Needle in every set as a stopgap solution.
Absolutely. So,
and something similar to Naturalize. My goodness, we finally got Fragmentize, and we just didn't have a halfway decent Disenchant for a year. Like that's another one that blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean, we had Natural State, but that's 3 or less, and then Fragmentize is 4 or less, and then you had mentioned Naturalize, and I was like, surely it was in one of the Shadows over Innistrad block sets, and I just gathered it now, and it was last printed in Dragons, and I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, like it's just too good. Like Wizards, you're killing me. First of all, no Pithing Needle, which means no Planeswalker hate. So between no Planeswalker hate and no Graveyard hate, God, there's just not much you can do about either of those strategies.
But it's also cruel to give us a Pithing Needle masterpiece, get our hopes up, and then be like, psych! And just be like, what?
Law, wouldn't you have liked that when you were playing standard law, whatever, Mike, take it easy. It's so silly. However, we gotta keep moving. We're gonna go here to a slightly more somber tone. One of the people responsible for Magic's existence, Mike Davis, unfortunately has passed away and lost his battle with cancer. Mark Rosewater talked about it on Blogatalk, as he does. And so, if you don't know who Mike Davis is, well, it turns out he had quite a bit to do with the game. Mike Davis was one of Richard Garfield's best friends, who convinced him to go to Seattle to try to sell his game Robo Rally, which is currently still in print, by the way, to a tiny company called Wizards of the Coast. Now, Wizards is like, don't really need that board game, but could you come up with something to do between D&D games? And, turns out he could. And it was the best game ever. So that's fantastic. And Mike Davis would later take a job at Wizards of the Coast as vice president of R&D, and he was the man who hired Mark Rosewater. This is the guy who made Mark Rosewater enter Wizards. That's a big, big deal. So, just wanted to give, a few moments of thanks of, there's some sort of unsung heroes of Magic. Not all the people who make Magic, we understand, who they are, what they do, how they're integrated into Magic. We know a few sort of very public figures. But sometimes when, the people who are responsible for bringing us all this stuff that has changed our lives, that has made our lives better, you want to be able to sort of honor that.
Yeah.
Which is terrific.
Yep. And screw cancer.
Cancer is the worst. Actual worst. All right, so we're going to go into some quick thought experiments, particularly going infinite this week. I want to talk a little bit about Sam Stoddard's article. Sam Stoddard's article was called An Update on Standard, where he basically said, yeah, we didn't ban anything, but wouldn't it be really crappy if we banned things? And, he can hurt player confidence if they ban things, but he can also hurt Standard if he doesn't ban things. And, man, this is difficult. So, they sure do wish they hadn't missed that copycat thing, because this is super awkward. It's interesting because you can kind of see what he's saying is they were preparing to not have to deal with Battle for Zendikar anymore, to do that 2-block rotation thing that they literally prepared for years to do. But when they finally came down to it, everybody lost their crap and couldn't handle it, and they dropped it. Oops, sorry, lol. So now they have to deal with this standard that has a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on. They have 4 different blocks in any one standard that's just doing everything with all of their themes, with all of their powerful versions of that theme, pushing out all the other cards of those mana costs. And trying to balance that turns out not easy. So, as Wizards does, they kind of break down sort of the challenges that they face, the developmental takeaways. And one of the things that we talked about just a little bit ago was there's no more core set. And in core sets, Wizards could just throw in whatever they wanted in there. They could throw in Steel Overseer in Magic 2011 because Scars of Miriam was out and it's going to make all those artifact creatures really awesome, which is sweet. Yep. Include random artifacts because they wanna. Okay, whatever. Include Pithing Needle in those sets because who cares? It doesn't matter if you're worried about it making sense with a block. You can just throw it in because that's great. And he gets to the point where he says, we don't need to answer Kaladesh with Shatterstorm, but I think in hindsight, making sure we at least have Naturalize or something stronger.
Bless his heart.
Look, it's tough to predict the future.
It's hard. It's difficult. I get it.
And no future League deck is perfect, right? It's very difficult to simulate millions of games of Magic, which end up being played with just the people who work within Wizards R&D. But by the same token, you gotta see copycat, right? Like there's some things you just have to see coming. And I will give them credit for one thing. There was a thing that he mentioned in the article, which that when they were testing the Future League, the rotation change back had not occurred. So they were actually testing a standard that was slightly different than the ones we're going to be ending up with. Right. So specifically for this time period that we're currently in, stretching from now or like maybe 6 months ago for the next 6 months. They didn't really test this exact combination of cards all together,
right?
Which is a little scary. But on the other hand, even when they test it all, they don't catch everything. So it is a good insight into what the mindset is of designers, and I'm glad that we got some ideas from what the future league looked like. When you get into future past standards,
wow,
the trying to figure out what tense to use in your words is difficult.
Right, days of future past. But
what the decks would have had looked like.
Wow. All I'm saying is I can understand. Look, I understand the problem that they're in, and I also understand that I feel like they clearly recognize that good answers are needed for good threats, and that's great. And it's weird that we've kind of had to go there to snap back, but okay. Aaron, how do you feel at this point about sort of the standard, their makeup? They didn't do any bans. This thing is trying to explain away not having naturalized in standard.
I kind of feel like I kind of feel like we're back to that. I still can't get the last article, or that one article that he attempted out of my head where he was like, so we took a poll and you guys voted it a 7, and they're like, no girl, it's a 4. Like, I see a lot of just spin here. Like I see a lot of words. I see a lot of, I thinks. I see a lot of I feels, but I don't know. I just worry that nothing's really being learned here, and I just can't read. Well, I can't read this without laughing.
I mean, the whole thing is just like, the format ended up being, quote, less diverse than we had hoped. Like, we understand there are 2 decks here, and everything else is not what those 2 decks are, and it sucks. And I hope that this is not like the last time we ever see the future league, for example. I don't want that to be what happens here. Rather, he does say it's kind of going away, and I hope it does come back because that is a thing. But it's not easy being green.
Call it the FML league.
Yeah, but it's not easy being green or a Wizards developer. Lord knows they have a very difficult job, and I have nothing but all the sympathy for them. But at the same time, buddy, when you're going to run this out there, we have to also point out, it's hard out here, working in R&D, but it's also hard out here being a player when you didn't give us tools to answer things. Okay,
sure.
Sorry, man. Ugh. Okay, so
this isn't new. It isn't new. Like they missed Scion of Una in Fairies. They missed a lot of things in the past. This isn't a new problem, and we'll just roll with the punches. I'm glad that they look. At the very least, I'm glad that they're communicating.
Yeah.
And Wizards has always been great about that, for what it's worth. And
absolutely.
And having worked now over a year deep in sort of the hobby gaming industry, like the board gaming industry and sort of the card game industry, that's not just Magic. Like, not every company is going to give you anywhere close to what Magic gives you in terms of transparency and trying to explain what's going on and why they did certain things. This is a very unique thing to Magic, which is great.
And I just want to clarify, this isn't personal either. Like, we know Sam Stoddard. We love Sam Stoddard. I have friends who work in R&D. We all have friends who work in R&D. This is nothing. This isn't personal. We're not like saying that. Like,
and I certainly couldn't have solved this problem. It's just it's very easy to take pot shots at because generally looks at everything.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, right. I would note that missing copycat is, I don't think, the end of the world. I mean, look. Over the past 5 years, they've printed a card that with a misspelling. The Monarch, had an entire missing. They accidentally a whole word, and everybody saw it. This wasn't like some card they changed at the last minute. Like, they knew what that card was supposed to do. So sometimes you just miss the forest, and you're right there in the trees, and you can't see it, and whatever. So I wanted to touch again on our last topic for the night before we go to the finisher, because I think this is really cool and fascinating. It was from a Reddit thread about 4 days ago. And the question was, besides Tybalt, what is the worst planeswalker ever printed in a normal...
Tybalt?
Yeah, Tybalt.
I don't say Tybalt? I'm
a southerner. It's Tybalt, y'all.
T-Balt.
I mean, hell far, it's Tybalt. Tybalt, in fact, brings the hell far. So Tibalt is the worst planeswalker ever printed in a normal expansion set. I'm pretty sure that title is just there and it's not close.
Aww.
However, what's in second place? And this isn't even like a finisher setup. This is actually something I wanted to talk about. Aaron, what would you feel is in your second place for the worst of all time in a normal expansion set?
There are quite a few candidates for this. Being the black mage of the group, Liliana of the Dark Realms is one of those cards that, you look at it and you're like, I can do things with this. This is fine. And then, like, you're looking at it and you're like, so Cryptghast, and I can make a bunch of mana, but I can... cast a Lord of the... That's not standard legal. Drain Light. That's not mine. No. Then you're like, what am I supposed to do with all this black mana? Yeah, it's not very good.
Pretty awful. Reuben, what's in your number 2 slot?
I mean, honestly, this is in my number 1 slot. Like, this card is so bad. When I say 4 mana Jace, you think Jace the Mind Sculptor. Better than all, right? He's got 4 abilities, the best thing ever. Then, I mean, there's even Jace Architect of Thought, which is pretty darn good. That card saw a lot of standard play. But from every cloud, a little rain must fall. And that's Jace the Living Guild Pact.
Wow.
This card, boy.
Wow.
Look at the top 2 cards of your library and put one of them into your graveyard. Bump it up to 6. That's how it defends itself. Is it gets to 6 and says, "Don't touch me." Or it can unsummon. Or it can unsummon for -3. You can't even unsummon twice. Like, at least Ralzeric was Johnny Two Bolts. This isn't even Johnny Two unsummon.
Johnny Two Bolts.
And then each player shuffle, and then you time spiral or you time twister. I mean, yeah, this card is just bad.
Right. So all right. So mine. First of all, I recognize, for example, Chandra Ablaze. However, Chandra Ablaze did legitimately see some amount of Pro Tour play. Even Jace the Living Guild Pact, in my opinion, it still saw some Pro Tour play. It was in the sideboard of Devotion decks. Yes, it was terrible, but they used it okay, fine. My number 2, with a bullet, is Gideon, Champion of Justice. My God, this card is terrible. Here's how he defends himself. It's a 4-mana 4 loyalty walker. His +1 is put a loyalty counter on him for each creature your target opponent controls. Not even your opponent's target opponent. So every one of those creatures has to be a 1 power or less, and that's the only way he actually defends himself. Otherwise, he's screwed. Now, his 0 is he becomes a XX equal to his loyalty count, and that's really nice. And his -7 billion is exile all of the permanents. Okay, fine,
it's
sure,
actual
whatever.
-15, right?
Yeah, -15. -15. This card is garbage. It was from Guild Pact. It was bad. It made me sad. I'm rhyming. Oh my God. All right.
Wait, Champion of Justice. That was from Gatecrash.
Gatecrash, not Guild Pact. I'm sorry.
We go.
It was from the equivalent of.
It was the second set of the second one because I'm an old man.
I'm gonna leave the opportunity for Dovin Bond to take over here, because it's really tough to be the worst 2 colorless and a white and a blue planeswalker, but boy, Dovin Bond did it. Like, just worse than Narset Transcendent somehow.
It's really...
Like, figured it out.
Dovin Bond is shockingly bad. Like, we were going through all the planeswalkers and like, oh, about this guy, okay, whatever. And it was like, wait a minute. Dovin Bond was just printed in Kaladesh.
Literally in Standard for another year and didn't remember it existed.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember that card existed? Is that a thing? Does anyone
Now,
care?
we're not going to count these are from sets. We're not counting the Intro Deck Planeswalkers because those are designed to not be as good.
Or the Commanders or whatever.
Right.
These are actual printed for standard sets. Other nominees were Kiora, Master of the Depths, I think it was.
Yeah. Kiora, Master of being printed after all Mana Dorks were printed.
Right. Oops. We don't print Mana Dorks anymore, therefore untyping a land and a creature doesn't really do anything. Right. Sure, you'll get the Magical Christmas Land with Rattleclaw Mystic, but, that ship has sailed. Either way, we're turning the corner.
And also Sarkon Unbroken, the 3 mana... three different colors of mana, 5 total mana, draw a card, Jonesy. We did it.
Got there, fam.
We definitely done it with that card.
Sarkhan,
Yeah.
not broken. Seriously,
Yeah,
not broken.
Sarkhan
He's
uninterested.
Yeah, Sarkhan unbroken. Absolutely.
Unbelievable. So we are turning the corner to the finisher. Now, I stumbled across another Reddit thread this week that got me thinking. We've seen Homelands, Prophecy, Dragon's Maze, Rebecca Gay Gate, Necro Affinity. Her last name is Gay, by the way. Guay. It's pronounced Gay. Necro Affinity, Bant Company, Eldrazi, Enemy Fetchlands, Enemy Fetchland Reprints, Counterfeits, Wingdings Mana, Wingdings Abilities, and now Wingdings Masterpieces. Thanks, Watsy. But so far, nothing has successfully killed Magic. They just can't do it. So in one sentence, what can actually kill Magic, Aaron?
Well, as of tomorrow, by congressional order, all players' gather or search histories will be public record.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
What are you looking up? What?
I gotta go delete my cookies.
My cookies need to go away. You don't need to know.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you dive deep in flavor text, you just don't know how to get out.
Delete graveyard history. Yeah.
All graveyard histories. Reuben?
Well, effective immediately for Pro Tour Amonkhet, all Pro Tour teams may only be sponsored officially if the sponsors' names are written in hieroglyphics on the back of the jerseys.
Now remember, they can't just be the sponsor's name in hieroglyphics. There have to be more hieroglyphics around it.
Right.
So you can you got is that a B
right.
or a D?
This is sponsored by Bird Leaf Magic Puzzle Quest Stick River.
And then you have the last names on the back. Book, Reed Book. What is that?
Yep. Is that a B or a D? I don't know.
Buki River, guy with staff, triangle.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Look, the real thing that will kill Magic is the perfect set. Because with nothing to complain about, all the Magic players would just die.
Too real.
Yeah.
Too real. So much complaining. Oh my God. That ends.
We would have nothing to do.
We would.
We wouldn't have a show.
The opposite of empathy, or the opposite of love, is empathy. So apathy. God, it's been a long day. All right, so fantastic. That's why we're wrapping it up. We've went a little long. It's getting a little late. Okay. That said, that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Reuben.
Oh, thank you.
And thanks for all of our listeners. Thanks to our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com. We're going to go to our final slide. So that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thank you guys for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. I want to thank my co-hosts, you guys, for watching, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Visit our website at magicmicspodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters. Or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people that we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmics, on Twitter at magicmicscast, on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmics, on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmics. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.